Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today I've put together my self-destructing books list for 2025. If you're not familiar with this concept, I think the original creator for it was Becca from Becca and the Books, or at least she's the first person I saw that had done it. But the idea is that you make a list of books that if you haven't read them at the end of the year, or if you haven't like DNF'd them and whatever, you haven't dealt with them in some way, they have to be unhauled. They just have to go off of your shelves at that point. And I wanted to try this last year because I was hoping it would help me prioritize some of the books that have been kind of hidden on my shelves, things I've forgotten that I own, or things that I bought and have since kind of lost my motivation to read. And it ended up being the most successful list I've ever created for myself. I read all 12 books on that list, or rather I didn't read all of them, but I reevaluated all of them and I ended up reading 3, I think, and then I DNF'd 4 and I straight up unhauled 5. So I managed to get those 12 books completely cleared off of my unread shelves, and I felt really good about that. So I wanted to make another list again for 2025. One thing I think is interesting that you'll see as we kind of go through the list is I think the first few books here are mostly kind of individual. They're just one-offs that were books that I've bought for various reasons and have now realized have been sitting here forever and I've never picked them up. But I have a lot of sets of 2 in this list as well. And so I'm kind of curious to see how this list is going to go and kind of how those different categories of 2 pan out for me in the coming year. To start with the list, I'm going to talk about the most painful book first. This is one of those one-offs, and it's The Hungry Earth by Nicholas Kaufman. He's been one of my favorite authors since I was in high school, and I've loved, I think, everything I've read from him. But this book in particular causes me significant anxiety every time I try to read it. I've had it for a few years now. I believe the second book in this series is out and he's working on a third. And I really want to love this series. It's like a horror mystery series following a medical examiner. But this particular book, you might be able to tell from the cover, has like cordyceps-like fungus in it. And every time I try to read this, I just get really anxious and I have not been able to finish the book. So I feel like it's time for me to reckon with this book and either finally push through and read the damn thing or acknowledge that it's just not going to be for me and pass it on to another reader, as much as it makes me sad to put a book by one of my favorite authors on this list. The second book on this list is also a one-off. We have Death by Dumpling by Vivian Chen, which is a cozy mystery about a young woman who has had a bad breakup and is back home working at her family's restaurant when the property manager for the restaurant suddenly dies because somebody has snuck an ingredient he's deathly allergic to into his food. She's trying to prove that it's not her family that did it, and presumably kind of hijinks ensue from there. I picked this up at a time when I was going through this phase where I thought I was really going to love these kind of punny, cozy mysteries, and then I read a few of them and I didn't like them. So as it turns out, I don't love them, and then I've been putting this one off because of that. Despite my interest in the premise, I'm kind of convinced I'm not going to like it just because I've had bad luck with several others, but I do still want to give it a try, and so I'm hopeful that having it on this list will get me to do that. I think now we get into our kind of categories of 2, with the first category being books that I bought because they're popular and I was very excited about them at the time. And I have since heard mixed reviews, and for one of them, mixed reviews specifically from my best friend, whose reviews I trust completely, that have dampened my interest in them. So the 2 we have here are Vicious by V.E. Schwab and The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kirsten White. And I'm really bummed that both of these are on this list. Vicious, I know, is very popular and has since received some sequels, but my friend really didn't care for this. She thought it was very kind of mid, and I still want to give it a try because she and I tend to disagree on things that she didn't like. If she tells me I'm gonna love a book, she's never wrong. But sometimes she dislikes a book and I end up really enjoying it, and I think it's that I am a little more tolerant of some weirdness in the world building or some weirdness in the characters in a way that she just isn't. That, like, that's not how she reads. And so I still want to give this one a try and see how I end up feeling about it. But I think that my kind of initial excitement for it has definitely passed at this point. And then for The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein, Frankenstein is one of my favorite books of all time, so that was what made me want to pick this one up. But then I've heard some mixed reviews of this, and I've since read another book from the same author, which I found was just okay for me. I didn't care for the plot all that much. I really didn't like the ending, and the characters were just okay. So ultimately the book was not very memorable, and I'm now a little bit concerned about how this author is going to tackle a retelling of one of my favorite books. I know a lot of people do really like Kirsten White, but that other book I've read from her made me think I don't think her writing is for me, and I'm now quite nervous about picking this one up. But I feel like both of these I need to just kind of rip the band-aid off and get to them. Our next set of two are books that I bought for a specific course I was going to be taking last year? End of last year, I think. Fall of last year. Well, no, not fall of last year. Fall of 2023. I'm actually filming this right at the end of 2024, but it'll be going up in 2025, so the dates are a little off. But I was gonna take this course in the fall of 2023, and I ended up not doing that because I did a teaching internship instead. But I dropped the course after I'd already purchased all the books, and I've been slowly kind of working my way through them. But these were two that I'm just not sure I'm that excited to read, given that I'm not taking the course at this point. So we have Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel and A Tale for the Time Being by Ruth Ozeki. Neither of these are books I would have picked up on my own, and I do think it's important to branch out and broaden your horizon to read new things, so I still want to give them a try. However, I don't think I'm going to care that much for a post-pandemic story. This one I think I might have a better luck with because one of my friends in the class, one of the classes I did take that semester, was in this course, and she talked about how she was excited they were reading this book because it's one of her favorite books, and she ended up writing a paper on it and everything. So I do really want to give this one a try, especially. I think it's possible I could end up loving both of these, but I think I need the extra push of the self-destructing list just to get me to pick them up because they are very much outside of my wheelhouse. Next up, we've got YA fantasies that I pre-ordered at the time and now they've languished. So we have A Dark and Hollow Star by Ashley Shuttleworth and Little Thieves by Margaret Owen. Let me move this stack a little out of the way there. Both of these I pre-ordered at the time. The premises are really interesting to me. We have a kind of murder mystery urban fantasy thing here that I believe is dealing with trauma as a theme. So I'm really intrigued by that. And then here we have a thief who was having to commit a heist to break a curse because she stole from the wrong person? I don't know why I said person so weird there. Anyway, both of these premises sound really cool to me, but they've just kind of languished on my shelves, and I am a little bit slow to pick up YA fantasy because it frequently doesn't work for me, and I'm intrigued to see how I end up feeling about either of these. But I, again, just need that extra push to get to them, especially because these are both pretty chunky as YA fantasy goes. So I think I could really enjoy both of these, I just need that extra motivation. Our penultimate group of two is books that I bought for a Goodreads Choice project I did several years ago. I think it was the 2021 Goodreads Choice Awards. I was doing this in kind of early 2022, but I was trying to read all of the sci-fi and fantasy nominees from that year, and so I was picking them up as I could find them, especially if they were on sale, and I picked up these two, which were sci-fi nominees, Firebreak by Nicole Cornerstace and Rabbits by Terry Miles, and these are both VR or augmented reality stories, and I think that's why I haven't picked them up. I don't find those stories very, like, exciting. These both sound like they could be cool, but I'm just not that excited by a VR or augmented reality story. I have also since read Snow Crash, which I actually viscerally hate, which has like VR and AR elements in it, so I'm a little worried about how I'm gonna feel about both of these. But again, I bought them with the intention of doing that project, so I do kind of want to circle back around and give them a shot anyway. And our final group of two is actually a set of books that I have never spoken about before, because I bought them as a blind date with a book thing at a bookstore when I was visiting my partner, and I was planning to do a blind date with a book reading vlog, and I never got around to doing that, and now I've had them on my shelves for like 2 years. I don't think I'm going to get around to doing that, and so they're going on this list because both of them have premises that have me a little bit reticent to pick them up. So we have The Winds Are Not by S.J. Bennett and Midnight at the Bright Ideas Bookstore by Matthew Sullivan. These are both mystery stories. They're short, shouldn't be a problem. However, this one, The Amateur Detective, is actually the late Queen Elizabeth. I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about real people being written as fictional characters, at least in this particular capacity. Like, I feel like it's going to feel weird to me. And then Midnight at the Bright Ideas Bookstore, this one I'm a little more intrigued about. We're following a bookseller who is working at this bookstore when one night she finds a customer has committed suicide in the bookstore's attic, and he has in his pocket a picture of her when she was a child, even though she never knew this man. So she's trying to figure out, like, how the hell does he know me? Where did he get this picture? What's going on? That sounds really interesting to me. I really want to see where that premise is going to go, but I don't think I'm ever gonna get around to doing that, like, blind date with a book video. and I need to just prioritize these because these will very easily become languishers on my shelf. So those are the 12 books that I'm going to try and read in 2025, and if I don't read them, they will self-destruct. I think typically this would go like January to January, but I'm going to do this January to December so that I can kind of check in at the end of the year, and whatever books on this list are as of yet unfinished, those will get unhauled as a part of my end of year unhaul in December. So that's kind of the plan, and I'm hopeful this is going to be successful. I think this is an interesting list for me because it's quite a few different genres and a few different categories, so I'm curious to see how that kind of plays out. But yeah, I'm hopeful that this is going to go well. So that's pretty much all I have for you today. Let me know down in the comments below if you've either ever put together a self-destructing books list, or if you were going to put a book on a list. What book would you put on this list? Like, what book has been languishing that you've just not gotten to? I really hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, I hope you consider giving it a like, maybe even subscribing to see what comes next. I'm currently posting on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.